Hi everyone, welcome back to another scrapbook process video. I think I'm going to call this another what not to do when scrapbooking video because this layout drove me crazy. So my first lesson with what not to do, don't cut your papers until you know what sizes you want to cut them at. Oh my gosh. This one piece of 12 by 12 pattern paper here I wanted to use, and I'm following a sketch that's by Scrapbook and Cards today. I've mentioned that I'm taking their class, and each month you get a double page sketch. Love that class, by the way. I will definitely take it. I think it's just like if you're running out of mojo, it's like you get this email in your inbox, hey, there's a new layout up once a month, and then the layouts are all gorgeous and I love them. And then plus that, there's a Facebook group that if you're part of the class you can join, and everybody else you can post pictures of the layout that you make from the sketch, so you get a whole bunch of inspiration all month long. It's great. Well, that is why I can't show you the sketch, although I really wish I could, so you guys can see what I'm doing here and how I keep messing up, and I don't even know what I was thinking half the time. I don't even know if I was thinking. So a few things, and this video, I'm sorry, it's going to be a little all over the place with the voiceover because I start talking about one thing and I see something else and I got to say, oh yeah, and look at this. So anyways, just bear with me through this video, okay? What not to do when scrapbooking, don't do a voiceover that's all over the place, right? Okay, so I've mentioned in a couple videos that my room was a mess. And I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to clean it. So it wasn't really like horribly messy. It was just a lot of little things here and there that needed a new home or put away, something like that. So I cleaned it. One of the things that I needed to do it's needed for a long time now is I had a bunch of used kits where I've already made layouts from them, and I didn't either feel inspired by them anymore, or I just was done making layouts, or there wasn't enough to really make another layout. And I had those all put to the side. There was probably like 15 or so, maybe, I don't know. I had those all put to the side so that I could cut them down to be the sizes for my daily life album, 4x6, 3x4, and so on. Well, they've been sitting around because I thought, oh, I'll just wait to cut them down as I use them. Well, I haven't done any of my daily life album, which is a whole nother story. I won't even go there. Well, instead of waiting, I decided, you know what? These are taking up a lot of space. I just need them to be done. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and cut them all up. And it really didn't take very long. It was actually kind of relaxing just to sit there and cut up a bunch of pattern papers. But I came across this kit, and this is one. This is so old. I don't even know how old it is. I want to say it's like Cloud 9 Design or something like that. I got this from Joann's years and years and years ago. I have some stickers and chipboard and embellishment that go with it by Heidi Grace, which you will see me, I will hold up to the camera later on in the video. But I don't know if it's the same company and they were made to coordinate together or how that all worked out. But yeah, long story short, it's really old. So I had only the one piece of 12 by 12 paper left of this, and I thought, I really like this pattern paper and I love these pattern papers, and there's quite a few of them. I don't really want to cut them down yet, so I decided I was going to take this sketch and I was going to make it work, and I was going to make another double page layout from this. So I thought, you know what, there's no reason I can't cut this 12 by 12 down and spread it across, because not all of it will show from behind the photos in the journaling area. So I started to cut it apart, and I don't know what I was thinking. Again, I have no idea what I was thinking because I just started cutting and cutting. I just don't even know. So I started to glue it down and realized, okay, there's two strips at the top that I'm completely missing. So I decided I better go ahead and glue those two strips at the top before I start any more cutting on the pattern paper, because that might change the size that I cut the pattern paper to. What I decided with this layout was I wanted to use, actually it's a decision I kind of been thinking about for a couple months now. I need to use up some of my cardstock. I don't think that I have an overwhelming amount of cardstock. I've seen other people who have a lot more, but I do have some, and it does take up space, and I would like to have I'd like to get rid of at least half of what I have so that since I don't hardly ever use it. So I've been thinking lately, I need to, instead of doing white cardstock backgrounds all the time, I need to try to use cardstock backgrounds. So that is why I'm doing this smaller piece of white cardstock, because on the back side of each of these pattern papers, it's a solid. It's actually more of a tone on tone, but I don't think you could see the pattern in this video because it's a really, really thin line that is just so subtle. So I didn't even bother trying to show it in the video because it just was so subtle. So I decided to use the white cardstock to help break it up, because you will see as I put the layout together, if I didn't use the white cardstock, it would all probably get really lost together. So I went ahead and glued this side down, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue this piece along the top, and you can kind of see how I'm piecing together that pattern paper, and so far it's okay. It looks pretty good there. It does look good in the end, I will say. You can't tell really in the end unless you're looking for it. But here's where I need a piece along the bottom, but before I cut another piece, I need to do the white cardstock piece that's on the other side, but I put them together. So another thing not to do, again, don't cut your papers without knowing what you're doing. Sorry for the noise there. I put that white cardstock next to it so I can kind of line them up and get the strips straight like I normally do, and that once the right hand side was cut so much smaller. I don't even know what I was thinking. I don't know how that happened, but whatever, it happened. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to fix this one first, and then I will go back and cut down the other one. Oh no, that's right. So I went ahead and measured the size of the white piece of cardstock that's going to go ahead on the right hand side, and I'm going to trim it down here. It's perfect. Well, almost perfect, I think. So a little trick that I learned, because I also need a little white border to go around this pattern paper. So Lisa Brooks, she's one of the ladies who's in the monthly celebration YouTube hop with me. She just recently showed that if you need to cut down a pattern paper or a piece of paper or a sticker or anything that's a little bit too longer, I don't know, whatever reason you might need to cut it from, you can do it. You just need to be real gentle and not push so hard that it goes through both pieces of paper, and just gently push through the one piece, which you will see me do it here again in just a moment. So I'm going to glue down this brown strip to, again, line up with the brown strip that's going to go on the left hand side. And I was going to trim it here because I thought it was crooked, but then I thought maybe it's not crooked, but it ends up being crooked, but that's later on. So here, again, I'm just going to take my little box knife and I'm just going to gently cut through that brown layer, and it doesn't cut through the white layer because I just did it gently, and that's awesome. So thank you very much, Brooke. I will try to remember to link her channel below. I've been trying to remember to do things like that, and I have not been very good, but I will try to on this video. So I'm going to go ahead and glue the two strips down, and I have that one stripe pattern piece. I have it hanging off because the sketch has it going all the way to the end of the layout, and I like that look. So that's why that is hanging off. So now I have to trim this pattern paper up a little bit because, again, I forgot about those stripe strips being at the top. Yeah, this layout, let me tell you. Just watching this makes me tired all over again. So here's where I discovered that it is, oh, there's a kitty that just joined my lap. Oh, no, it's the same cat that's always on my lap. I thought it was the new kitty that, or not the new kitty, but the orangey kitty. Orangey kitty never gets on my lap. Blacky kitty gets on my lap every time I'm going to need to get up in just a minute. But anyways, I will do a layout about my cats so you guys can learn a little bit more about them and their names. So remind me and I'll do that. I'm going to go ahead and glue these down here. This is where they were crooked, but I'm going to get them fixed, and it's just fine. Turns out just fine. Just pulling them up a little bit. But that was just another thing that added to this layout that was like, really? Okay, come on. So I got those down, and then I'm going to line it up, and I do have to trim off just another tiny bit of the white here. So I'm going to ink the edges, and then now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put down the last piece of that pattern paper to look like one full piece. And so there is a part where they meet up here, and there's a part where they meet up along the top. One thing to help make it look like it's not put together, that it's just one full sheet, is I inked all the edges except where the same pattern paper met, if that makes any sense. So that the inked edge will be continuous, but where it meets, it will stop. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but I hope you guys understand what I mean. So these are the colors that I chose for the background. Again, this is just the opposite side of the pattern papers, so it was pretty easy to choose these. I really wanted to use them because they're really pretty. I thought maybe I would use that lighter blue, but I kind of felt like it didn't really go as well as this little bit darker blue or teal or whatever color. So now I'm going to go ahead and glue these down, and just to glue down the rest of that stripe strip, which looks extremely crooked there, by the way, just to glue that down, I am going to use a little bit of my scrappy tape, which I like to use. That stuff is such a lifesaver. And I use that to glue down the rest of the stripe strip, and then we can get started on the actual fun part of the layout. So that white hole that is there, but you won't see it in the end. And also those two places where, oh, here's another thing that I almost missed, is there was another piece of either pattern paper or plain paper like I'm using here. I think I'm going to use the same brown that is in that very top strip that's on the paper. I looked around and I just couldn't figure out which paper I wanted to go behind here, and this was just subtle enough because you only see some of it, so I decided to work with that. So I'm going to cut that down, and I'm going to add it to both sides, and I'm glad that I saw this part because that's really going to help fill in that white space that you can see of the white cardstock there. So I'm going to glue these down. I think I've said that like 10 times now. And I'm kind of gluing it. It doesn't cover up. There's going to be a little white hole left over when I'm done putting the pictures down, but it's going to be fixed. So really the layout turns out really pretty for what it was. I am going to have some more struggles, but it's okay because I'm really glad again that I got another layout out of this pattern paper. While I'm gluing this other side down, I will tell you these are just photos. We had family photos taken in 2017, and she took a few photos of just me and my husband, you know, and just each kid separate, just a few random photos. They weren't all family photos, so these are just some of those photos. But I want you to notice that I am also using, instead of just using black and white or just colored photos, I'm using both. I have done this before multiple times. I love the way it looks. So if you've never used black and white and color photos on a layout, give it a try because it really, really does look good. The black and white doesn't have any color in it, so it kind of leaves you open to using the color photos. So you'll see here in just a moment, sorry, I hope that's not noisy. You'll see here in just a moment how good it looks. And what I did is, because most of them are black and white and I only have 2 color photos, I'm putting the 2 color photos on very opposite ends of each other, so it kind of helps. If I would have had the 2 color photos next to each other and then all the black and white ones next to each other, it wouldn't flow as well. So think about that when you're using the colored papers, or I mean both black and white and colored photos. But it looks really pretty when people do it. I love it. So I put that photo down there, and I still had a little bit of that white hole peeking through. So I thought maybe, plus those photos, some of the photos I liked the smaller photos better than the bigger photos, but because of the orientation of the smaller photos, they wouldn't have fit where the 4x6 verticals were supposed to go. So I cut those down. So to help them stand out just a little bit more, I am going to add a border or a mat to each one. And here's another spot where it's like this layout just couldn't get along very well. My perfect layer rulers didn't want to work. Oh, you know what though? Thinking about it now, because that pattern paper, I don't know if you can tell with the light, the way the light's hitting on it at all, but there's a bunch of raised. A lot of those circles are raised. Same thing with the pattern paper that I used on my layout. There's a bunch of raised elements. That was one thing about this pattern paper that I really liked. It was all the raised shiny elements. So I think that's why my perfect layer ruler, it wasn't working now that I think about it. I did get it to work. I got the first photo to work, and I didn't want to start over or use my cutter because I wanted them all to be about the same size. So, and this last photo, other than this one side here, seems to go fairly easy with this. But yeah, so the rest of this will go fairly easy. But yeah, that's probably why now. So if you do try to use these rulers with paper that has raised edges somewhere, just know that it might be a little more difficult. But it worked. Just got to be a little patient. I am going to ink these edges with my brown Close to My Heart ink. I've inked all the edges with the same ink. I did it with this brown paper because when you cut it, you can kind of see the white inside a little bit. It's not very obvious, and it would be fine if it wasn't inked, but just to me, it just helps finish off the look. So I'm going to go ahead and glue all the photos here on the right hand side, and then I will work again on the left hand side. And here you can see where I could have switched this black and white small photo with the color photo and it would have been just fine. I probably should have now thinking about it, but either way, you can see there that the photos work really well together and I love it. So I glued this photo down and then there was still that little hole there with the white peeking through. But again, I'm going to fill that. I knew after I would just have to find an embellishment. One of the first things I'm going to do here, which I have to say I'm actually rather surprised with how old these are. These are some sticky, oh, you can see Heidi Grace Designs was the name of these. The paper didn't have that name on it, but they look, I believe they coordinated together and were even sold together in the same spot in the store, so I don't know. But these chipboard letters are super sticky. I was surprised. I still do add more adhesive to them because you never know with chipboard, but I had to go cook dinner and I didn't want to leave them sticking to the layout, not knowing exactly where I wanted them to go. So something I hardly ever do is I pulled out some wax paper like a lot of people do, and it worked pretty well, especially because I don't end up putting the title there. So that was nice. I'm glad I did it though, because those letters would have stuck. When I put the title up there, which is originally where I was thinking I would put the title, I knew there was that little hole still, so I took out this tag thinking I would maybe put this tag behind there, but I didn't like the way that looked. That just, bleh, yeah, I didn't like it. So I'm going to try a couple other things. One of the things I knew that I wanted to use was that flower with all the petals with all the words on it. I really like that. I think that's a really cute element, and you'll see my struggles with that in a little while. Again, what else not to do? I am going to put this down, and again, when I put my stickers down, I just gently put one side of the sticker down or a little piece of it down, but these actually, again, these stickers were rather sticky for how old they were. I was, again, really surprised. Although that's not what causes the problems, but I'll show you in just a minute. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm not really gluing any of my clusters down yet. This is probably one of the longest times it's taken me before I start gluing clusters down. You know, a lot of you probably know that I start gluing clusters down once I get a few things the way I like them. But I'm really going to play around and struggle with some of these clusters. I like the way that most of them end up. There's a couple things I'm not 100% crazy about with this layout, but as a whole, I really like the end result. Ooh, I wish I actually would have left that top cluster on the left the way it is now. I like how it looks now, but anyways. Oh, another thing I wish I would have used too just now was the photo corner. I think that actually looked really cute. So that's one thing I've struggled, if you don't know, too. Photo corners are harder for me to use, and yeah, looking at it just now in the video, it actually looked really pretty, but I didn't use the photo corner, but that's okay. It is what it is. So I don't have a ton of stuff left over. It looks like a lot, but a lot of it's kind of more just simple stuff like, you know, those brackets or just plain circles. So I'm just playing around quite a bit with these clusters and seeing what I want to put where. And I'm trying to use up as much as I can, knowing that this is probably the last full layout. I will save the rest. I did save the rest of this. Some of it I saved the flip side, like the coordinating cardstock color, whatever you call it there. The tone on tone, I did save those colors, and then any scraps that were left over I cut down to go be ready to use in my daily life album along with whatever embellishments were left over. But I am trying to use up as much as I can. So I went ahead and I decided, okay, I just need to start gluing things down or I'm going to play with these forever. So I went ahead and I started up in this top left-hand corner. The one thing I will say, these little flower stickers, of all things, they felt the least stickiest. So they were definitely, it took me a while longer to glue those down, but that's okay because I don't mind adding a little extra glue. I went ahead and I added that I will remember journaling box underneath the title Love, and it's okay there. I think of all the clusters, this one underneath the word love that you will see as I go along is probably my least favorite, but it's okay in the end. One thing I do add, there's no still shot photos at the end of this. I was ready to be done with this layout and I just was done. So unfortunately there's none of those, but I do add some embellishments at the very end that really finish off everything, I feel. And I wanted to use these chipboard hearts that are they look like they're flowing in a breeze or something. So I added this one here, which again also really throws me off because now it leaves that space in between the heart and the photo and the cluster. But I'm going to fill that in with more stuff. But I am kind of going back and forth between this cluster and the other cluster, just gluing everything down. In each cluster, I am gluing at least one flower, sometimes more than one flower, but I want each cluster to have a flower that is popped up with some foam tape. And again, the foam tape that I use is really thin. I want to say it's only like 1/16 of an inch. It's not very thick at all, but I love it. It just gives that little bit of dimension and it's good enough. So again, I'm going to add more glue to this flower because it didn't want to stick very well. One thing that is going to throw me off big time is that yellow heart that I used over in the left-hand cluster. It's yellow. I know I currently have the yellow sticker over here on this cluster, but it's not going to stay. And so I'm going to struggle with that one piece of yellow showing, but I will talk about that a little later. I did decide that yellow sticker for the circle of that flower was a bit much, and I'm glad I changed it because, well, here comes some more struggles. First of all, excuse me, I got to take a drink of coffee so my throat doesn't get closed up. Okay. This flower, the way they had it on the sticker sheet was really cute, perfectly around, and just looked really nice. When I'm going to start gluing mine down, and I am popping all of this flower, all of the petals up on some foam tape. I really like this, how it has the words in there, because I felt like a lot of those words really matched up with me and my husband, funny, things like that. Sorry about my phone. Sorry about that. I had to respond to my son really quick. So I started gluing down this flower, and I realized as I was going along with the petals that the way they were kind of lining up around the flower didn't look as well or as good as it did on the sticker sheet. So I'm going to still add the foam tape behind them, and at this point I don't think I decided to, but I'm going to try to add something else to help it look a little better. So on another sticker that they had, which you can see me peeling up here, was this. It's kind of like a flower stem, but it's a little funky because it kind of swirls. So I decided to trim that down and make it look like the flower is coming out from behind the photos. And this is one of the things I really like about this layout. However, I glued it down there and it was a little crooked, so I needed to move over the flower petals. But you can see as I pulled up each flower petal, the paper started to rip, which usually doesn't bother me. So I thought, I'm just going to keep moving them and see what happens. But there was a couple different spots that weren't getting covered up. And so I said, okay, that's just not happening. I might as well fix it now before I go any further. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to so another thing is don't peel your stickers back up and down. What I'm going to do to fix it is I'm going to take this same piece of colored pattern paper and I'm going to ink it and I'm going to stick it in behind just like it was the piece that went there. I didn't pull up the other piece because it went behind the photos and everything, and it would have been a lot more work to pull it up. So I'm just going to take this one and put it on the top of the other one, and nobody will ever be the wiser. So it's a little bit annoying to try to get in there, and you can probably see that there's some white torn spots still on that tealish bluish background paper, but most of that is going to get covered up. In fact, I think there's only like one tiny little spot that doesn't get covered up. I did start the flower though, so I could make sure to kind of cover up those, and then I put the stem in, which I kind of liked the way that the stem looked before I moved it, but it's okay. It still looks really cute, I think. And the stem helped really fill in one of the spots so the petals were a little closer together and looked a little more like a normal flower. So now I'm going to glue down those, and again I'm going to move them all, but you will see I'm going to cover up that one spot, and so it works out just fine. Like I said, I think there's only one tiny spot that doesn't get covered, which is not really all that noticeable. And actually, when I might have actually ended up covering it up in the end when I added my little petite posy things around. So there you can see I took that little brown flower and I added it over that one torn spot, and that's all you probably really notice. So now that I had glued down most of these clusters, I'm just kind of adding more of the flowers around, just because I knew I wanted to make sure to use a lot of them up. I'm going to play around with this cluster now a little bit. I wasn't sure about it. This is another cluster that I'm not 100% sure about, but it will work out in the end. I think what else kind of threw me off a little bit was I wanted this cluster of flowers on the right hand side that's on the top to be kind of flowy and the flowers going everywhere, so that threw me off a little bit, but I like how it looks again too. So I had these little like sprays or flourish that came off of one that was one of the chipboard pieces, so I thought I would try them. Originally I had them in that cluster on the right on the bottom, but I just kind of wanted to see what if they would go anywhere else and look really good. So I'm definitely playing around quite a bit. Then I thought maybe at the end of this flower, but that, no, that didn't look right at all. I did not like how that looked. Excuse me. So then I decided to put them back in this cluster, and instead of coming off of just that one heart like I had them, I decided to try putting them in a different spot, and I got out another chipboard circle that was brown. And I liked how that brown kind of added that brown color that those other flowers are made of down into that little cluster. I am going to play around because I think this might be when I started to realize that there was that one yellow heart up on the left and that yellow was nowhere else. And so I did play around. Oh, it looks like I didn't even end up using the brown after all, although I wish I kind of would have, because I think it looked the best with the brown. But so I am going to end up putting these flourishes back into this cluster, but that's okay. I really like how I'm okay with how it looks anyway. So for the rest, there was also some little tiny circle stickers you can kind of see. I just randomly put some dots down, and have to be honest, I wish I wouldn't have done that, but once they were already glued down, I didn't want to take the chance of trying to pull them up and ripping that pattern paper that I spent so much time making sure to use a lot of. Also by the way, that heart that I put, that flowy big blue heart up on the left hand side, another reason I put that in that cluster is because it covered up a lot of the seam where that pattern paper met together, where it was cut. So it's a little bit harder to notice. And then underneath the love, the word love, is that other seam, and there was this little row of those circles that you can see I have gently placed there now. I'm going to glue them down here now. I went ahead, and I wasn't 100% crazy about that, but I decided it really kind of helped cover up that seam a little bit more, and it didn't look too bad since they were such a light color. So I went ahead and glued those down as well. I did add a different circle to the flower on the right hand side with the petals with the words. I just took a chipboard circle. There was a lot of just random chipboard circles as cluster or embellishments, so which I thought was actually pretty cute. I am going to glue all of these down. I kind of liked the swirl before I glued them down, but it's okay, it turns out. Again, it was just trying to use up more stuff so that it wouldn't get left, you know what I mean? I'm just looking more. So here's more of these little tiny circles. They're just stickers. A bunch of these ones are not chipboard. So I'm adding these around, and these are not very sticky either. So I just added those, taking a few of the chipboard stickers and adding them in the centers of the circles, the flowers. And at the very end, you will see I'm going to take some little like sparkly glitter embellishments, and I'm going to add them all around the page, and I'm going to add them into the centers of each flower. So again, I apologize that you won't see that, but it does turn out well. It really kind of finishes off the layout. Another little hint for you, if you want to use a piece of chipboard but it's too thick for what you want to do, you can make it thinner by just taking apart some of the layers. So you might have seen me do it with that yellow heart, because this is again where I decided, oh, there's that bright yellow up in the top left, so I'm trying to add it around to a few spots here. I thought about using these flourishes, but they were just a little too yellow for that spot, I feel like. And oh, yeah, that's what I decided to do. I liked the flourishes there. They were just a little too stark yellow. So what I did was I got my ink and I thought, I'm going to try to ink them and see how that turns out. And it actually made them, it helped make them a little more subtle than they were, what they were, because I liked the way that the flourishes fit into that little section. I feel like it really kind of helped finish off the right-hand side of that cluster. So yeah, inking those edges, now that helped bring the yellow around. So there's not a whole lot of yellow around the page still, but there is enough to where that one on the left-hand side isn't all alone and totally obvious. I tried to use this yellow heart, and I also tried to use these yellow brackets, but they, again, were just too yellow. But I got the idea of using the brackets. So there was, I remembered when I saw those yellow ones, there were these blue ones, and I don't hardly ever use yellow or brackets, so I thought I would give it a try. And so they're just, I haven't glued them down or anything yet, but they are on each side of the title. Again, excuse me. Then I had one of these tags, and I knew that I kind of wanted a cluster somewhere along the top. I felt like it was very plain up there and needed something. So there was a chipboard tag, and again, just to make it thinner because I wanted it to look like it was tucked behind the photo, I went ahead and took off a bunch of the layers of the chipboard so that it was almost as thin as a regular piece of paper, and I tucked it in behind there, and then I put that brown tag that I had originally cut at the very beginning of the video and put that there, and it really helped. So that cluster I really like. I am going to struggle with what to put excuse me. I am going to struggle with what to put through this yellow tag to make it look like it's got, like, what do you call that little enforcer part of the tag? Sorry, I had to have another drink so that I don't keep croaking on you. And another thing that I did was I took one of the journaling boxes that had the words, and I just cut some of the words out of that journaling box and made it into like a word sticker strip. There was no word sticker strips in this, and I felt like the layout really needed some. And plus that cluster, I felt like that cluster up above really needed something as well. And so I just cut out some of the words from the journaling box, and I saved the rest of the journaling box because where it's not cut, it can still be tucked under something to be used just like it's not cut at all. So maybe when I use it in my daily life album, I can still use it that way. So now here I'm looking for more to see if there's any other words that I can cut out of paper, out of the stickers to use. And I'm going to use this one that says, I think this one says today, and I think it said today is, but I'm just cutting out the word today. And I am inking the edges of each one of these to kind of, you know, just help it go along with everything. And I put it along the side of this heart, and I felt like that really finished that cluster in the way that it needed to be finished. Like it really just kind of, I don't know, I really liked it there, so I glued that down right away. I thought about cutting up more of the clusters to see if there was anything I could add, and I also cut down this sorry, did I say clusters? I'm getting all confused now. I thought about cutting up more of the stickers to see if there was any more words I could add, and I also tried using that other flower stem, but there was nowhere that the flowers were really poking out from behind something to make it look normal. So I'm just here, I'm just going through and seeing if there's any last little leftovers that I can use. There was this little kind of whitish, almost white heart that I decided to use, and it kind of helps pull over the lighter colors from the title. And then I thought that this space here seemed very empty, but there was no H. I had already used the H. I was going to use J and H for our names, but it just wasn't working. And then I thought maybe I would use the title, but those chipboard numbers were just too big and it wouldn't have fit in there the way that I wanted to. So then I remembered I had these rub-ons and I was amazed. These rub-ons, for being how old they are, I don't buy rub-ons anymore. I don't trust them. But these things went on super smooth, not one problem whatsoever. So I tried out the letter Q on a scrap piece of paper first, and it worked perfectly. So now I'm going to cut out with these rub-ons. And again, these were the same Heidi Grace, whatever, they went along with everything. I'm going to cut out the year. So I'm putting 2017. What I don't like, and I didn't realize at first, is that the 2 is a lot smaller than all the other numbers. I thought that the numbers, a lot of everything in this, the letters, a lot of the letters you can probably see, some are bigger than others. But I'd already put it down and I wasn't going to try to take it off or whatever. Although somebody shared one time, a long time ago, if you need to get rub-ons back up, to use Scotch tape. And I have done that trick before. It's not 100% foolproof, but after all the struggles I'd gone through with this layout, there was no way I was going to try to pull those up. So the year's on there, and it's kind of nice because I do feel like it adds something into this area, so it's not completely just blank. White space doesn't usually bother me too much, depending on where it's at. I definitely didn't like it here as well. And then at the very end, also, I'm going to take a rub-on J and a rub-on H, and I'm going to add our initials over the title where it says love. One thing I'm doing here is with these rub-ons, there was a couple of just dots on the paper. So I'm just going to take those little dots and add them around. And they're super subtle, but I feel like I'm just using up more of my product and not letting it go to waste. So and they're there and they're tiny, but they're cute. So that works out pretty well. So this is pretty much going to wrap up the layout. Again, I apologize. There's no final in photos, but I kind of ran out of time, didn't have time to take the photos, and I wanted to get this voiceover done. So I hope you guys liked the video. I'm sorry that it was a little bit all over the place. Again, here is where I'm going to decide to pull out my embellishments and add some around. I'm happy with how this layout turned out, even with all the struggles. So yep, I'm using my Queen & Company. These are the Petite Posies, and these are just the white. They are some of my favorite embellishments by them. So thank you so much for joining me if you lasted through this whole video, and I will see you guys next time. All right, bye.